Hello. I've taken a break for a couple of days because, frankly, I found most of the situation of what's going on so depressing. I had to give myself some time to come to terms with it. And I did a lot of riding, and I'm absolutely shattered now because I was doing far too much. But yeah, it was good. The weather was good. The daffodils are out. The whole you see those miles of daffodils in lines along the curbs and the verges and things, and in the woods, and you realise that life does go on. Yeah, Wordsworth. Yeah, I wondered what a dumb poem that was. Sometime I might go through Wordsworth's Daffodils if enough of you ask for it. But of all the sickly sweet stuff you could write, that was just about the most, I don't know what, birthday card type poem I've seen from a recognised poet. Anyway, yeah, that's beside the point. I am now going to make 2 or 3 videos because even though I wasn't actually making videos, my mind was turning on stuff and I've built up a bit of a backlog. So the first one is my philosophising about the nature of empire, because I think what we're seeing here is a sort of final kick of the old idea of empire. It's thousands of years old. There's no reason why people shouldn't still have it in their minds. But it's reached its literally its sell-by date. I'll get to that in a minute. So it used to be that people wanted empires, big rulers wanted empires because everyone else was doing it. You'd grab land, and when you grabbed land, you got resources, you got slaves, you could loot and plunder the property of the people you have subdued. You could tax them, and then all that money goes back. There's a lot of you see that in the Bible a lot, where the Assyrians descended like the wolf on the fold, or whoever it was, and they pillaged the land of Israel or Judea or wherever it was, and they took everything. And there was one point where the Jews in the subdued areas were turning over more than half of their olive crop to which I don't even remember which one it was, the Assyrians or the Persians. I mean, that place was conquered and moved around so many times, I've lost count. But the point is, the people were kept in a state of abject poverty because they were being forced to turn over most of their resources, which went to the king or the emperor or whoever it was, and then he put this stuff on the market in the centre of his sphere of influence. So the people there got cheap olive oil and other resources and slaves or whatever, and they thought he was pretty marvellous and they supported him. And that's how an empire supported itself. The end of the 19th century really was the end of that sort of thing. Now, Britain had the last big empire, and even by then they weren't thinking so much of raping and pillaging the lands they'd conquered, but of administering them and civilizing them. That was in their mind. It was a different idea, and they didn't realize that that was a sort of turning point of the idea of empire. And in the 20th century, the nature of empire completely changed. Britain, of course, was forced to give up its empire, and America, while pretending it didn't have an empire, established a new form of empire, which was not totally fully formed. It was the empire of consumables. Of course, there was some dabbling in governments when it came to oil, because America wanted the oil, so they did wage wars and try to establish friendly governments in places that would give them resources. I'm setting the idea of Vietnam, Korea on one side for the moment. I think that's a separate issue. But what the Americans didn't do in general was, even in the countries where they wanted the resources, oil or whatever, they wouldn't put an American governor in charge of it, not officially. Officially, the government was the same of the people who were living there. Now, that was not a stable situation. The Americans thought it was more moral, but it wasn't. The British Empire was pretty stable and relatively peaceful, perforce in some situations, but relatively peaceful. But it wouldn't be sustainable now. Real empires now, and it sort of crept on us and we didn't notice it, are being run by China. That has now a stranglehold on manufactured goods. And then there's the empires of the oil producing companies who have a stranglehold on resources. And although it's fairly well hidden, a lot of Britain, for instance, belongs to Saudi Arabia, and a lot of America too. Belongs to, a lot of Canada belongs to China, I believe. And let's face it, it's well known that after 9/11, a whole lot of Saudi people were allowed to leave the United States on private planes. If that isn't an example of influence, of being above American law and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm not suggesting that they were responsible, but they obviously thought they might be held responsible in some way or in danger of some sort of backlash. So they left at a time when nobody else was being allowed to leave. So you can see the sort of influence they had there. Now, Putin, this Ukraine business, he's made the classic mistake of fighting last century's war. In the case of the Ukraine, it was a land grab. And there's no doubt about that. He wanted the Ukraine resources. There are plenty of nice natural resources in Ukraine, as well as the extra territory. You know, we kept talking about how Ukraine, or the Ukraine in his mind anyway, Ukraine meaning borderlands in Russian, or local language rather, Ukraine was a step out in his territory, giving Russia more protection. So Ukraine was being taken not only for its physical resources, but for its psychological distancing from NATO. And he had this idea that NATO would grab Ukraine if he didn't. And he has a point. But he could have done it differently, and that is the important part of this. For instance, if Russia was producing stuff that Ukraine needed and made themselves indispensable, they could have turned Ukraine into a vassal anyway, like Germany. I'm sorry to say this to any of my German subscribers who are still left, but Germany has become a vassal of Russia. And even now it is staying out of the Ukraine business and dragging its feet on assisting. Now, look, I am not suggesting that anyone actually goes to war over Ukraine. It looks to me like they're perfectly capable of fighting their own battles. What they need is the materiel, and I'm fine with them supplying that. My humble opinion. I know that I've lost a lot of subscribers. And they're mostly, I suppose, from people who disagree with me very strongly about the Ukraine business. Nothing I can do about that. Okay, the problem with Russia is that Putin gave all his top jobs, all the things over which he had influence, to his KGB colleagues and comrades from the old days. And so there's no real industry, no entrepreneurial industry in Russia now. There was the beginnings of it, but Putin stamped pretty comprehensively on that, and a lot of big businessmen who were making it on their own ended up in jail for one pretext or another. So look, I know Russia produces tractors and wheat, but these are all state-run enterprises. But, you know, somebody like Elon Musk could not have come up in Russia. simply because if he got too much influence, he'd have ended up, as I said, in jail on some pretext, or having to run out of Russia to save his life, which wasn't always so successful a strategy. So that is my take on what's going on in Ukraine right now. Putin is fighting last century's war, and he's fighting an old-fashioned empire war, an imperial war, which people don't do nowadays. And what we have to think of is the other sorts of war that are being waged on us here in the West. As I say, the war of consumables, which we don't even notice. You don't need bombs to subdue a nation nowadays, as Germany has found out, to its cost. All right, well, that's my thought on the Ukraine, at least the philosophy behind the Ukraine business. My hopes and prayers are with Ukraine, as much as I could pray when I have trouble believing there's a God who might listen. Okay, I am Graniopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I let you know when I've uploaded something by putting out a post on Twitter, Gab and Parler, and my handle there is @Graniopteryx. Please like this video and share it if you can. I want to build up my numbers again. And share it. Yeah, what else do I have to say? Yeah, make sure you still subscribed one way or the other. And I'll see you next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.